Nathan Cross stood alone on the landing pad and watched the transport ship lift into the gray sky. The engines roared once, then faded to nothing as the vessel disappeared into the clouds. He waited until even the sound was gone before picking up his 2 supply crates. The wind blew dust across the empty plateau. There was nothing else to see. Just rocks and dirt stretching to the horizon in every direction. This was Keth, 7. This was home now. Maybe forever. He walked slowly toward the small metal shelter that sat like a forgotten toy on the barren ground. His step felt heavy. His boots crunched on the rocky soil. The air was thin here and breathing took effort. The planet had oxygen but not much. Every movement made his lungs work harder. Nathan reached the shelter and pushed the door open. Inside was one room with one bed, one table, one chair, and one small window. He dropped his crates on the floor and sat down on the bed. The mattress was hard. Everything here was hard. 6 months ago, Nathan had a real life. He worked as a colonial administrator on Station Vega 9. People respected him. He had friends. He had a future. Then the sickness came. A virus spread through the residential sections fast. People were dying. Children were dying. The company had medicine in the restricted storage, but they refused to release it. Too expensive, they said. Wait for the regular supply shipment, they said. Nathan couldn't wait. He broke the locks and gave the medicine to the doctors. 300 people survived because of what he did. 300 families kept their children, their parents, their loved ones. The company called it theft. They put him on trial. The judge called him guilty. The sentence was exile to Keth, 7 for 5 years. Maybe more if he caused trouble. Nathan lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He was 42 years old. 5 years felt like forever. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about the faces of the people he had saved. They hadn't even been allowed to testify at his trial. The days blended together. Nathan woke up, checked the air recycler, cleaned the solar panels, ate tasteless food from packages and went back to sleep. The mining drones rolled across the plateau on their programmed routes. They dug into the ground, collected ore and deposited it at the collection point. They never looked at Nathan. They didn't care that he existed. A cargo ship would come every 3 months to collect the minerals. It wouldn't land. It would just hover, grab the containers with magnetic clamps and leave. Nathan was invisible. He was less than invisible. He was nothing. On the 8th night, Nathan woke to a sound. It was deep and low, like a horn blown somewhere far away. The sound traveled across the empty land and made the walls of his shelter vibrate slightly. He sat up in bed and listened. The sound came again. It was mournful and beautiful at the same time. Nathan got out of bed and went to the window. The 2 moons of Keth, 7 lit the landscape with silver light. Nothing moved outside. The rocks cast long shadows. The sound came a 3rd time and Nathan felt it in his chest. It was coming from the south, from beyond the ridge. The next morning he checked the planetary data files on his computer. According to the company survey, Keth, 7 was completely dead. No volcanoes. No earthquakes. No plants. No animals. Nothing but rock and valuable minerals. The planet was listed as totally safe and totally empty. But something had made that sound. Nathan started paying attention to the mining drones. They followed strict patterns across the plateau, moving in careful grid formations. But there was one area they all avoided. A valley system about 5 kilometers south. The drones would approach it, then turn and go around. Every single one of them. Like they were programmed to stay away. Nathan opened the satellite images on his computer. The valley looked normal. Just rocks and dirt like everywhere else on this planet. But the mining drones definitely avoided it. Someone had told them not to go there. Why would a dead, empty planet have a restricted zone? The sound came again that night. And the night after. Each time, Nathan felt something pull at him. A curiosity he hadn't felt in months. A reason to move, to explore, to do something other than wait for time to pass. On his 15th day of exile, Nathan packed a survival kit with water, food, breathing equipment, and a portable scanner. He knew this was probably stupid. He was supposed to serve his sentence quietly. Exploring forbidden areas could add years to his punishment. But the alternative was sitting in that metal box and slowly going crazy. He walked south toward the ridge. The journey took 3 hours. The thin air made him stop frequently to catch his breath. The land rose and fell in gentle waves that hid the real geography. What looked like small hills from a distance turned out to be tall ridges. What looked flat turned out to be deep canyons. Nathan climbed the final ridge and looked down. His breath caught in his throat. The canyon below was filled with structures. Massive towers of carved stone rose from the floor. Some were 50 meters tall, covered with flowing symbols that looked like writing. The structures were ancient. Wind and time had worn their surfaces, but their shape was still clear. Perfect angles, smooth curves, deliberate design. Someone had built a city here. Or a temple. Or something Nathan had no words for. He scrambled down the slope, his heart pounding hard. His hands shook as he took pictures with his scanner. The company survey had missed this completely. Or they had lied about it. These structures should have been the biggest discovery in decades. They proved intelligent life had existed here. Nathan walked between the stone towers. He ran his hands over the carved symbols. They were beautiful, flowing like water frozen in rock. He wondered who had made them. When had they lived here? Where had they gone? The sound came again, echoing through the canyon. It was much closer now. Nathan felt it vibrate through the stones beneath his feet. He followed it deeper into the complex, past fallen pillars and collapsed walls. The structures grew larger as he walked. He was approaching something important. Then the canyon opened into a massive chamber. Nathan stopped and stared. The space was enormous, carved from solid rock. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above. But he barely noticed the architecture. His eyes fixed on what rested in the center of the chamber floor. 6 eggs. Enormous eggs, each one 3 meters tall. They sat in a perfect circle and they glowed. Soft blue light pulsed across their surfaces in slow waves, like a heartbeat made visible. The light was gentle and beautiful. Nathan had never seen anything like it. He walked forward slowly, afraid to make noise. The eggs radiated warmth. He could feel it from meters away. When he reached the nearest egg, he stopped and just looked at it for a long moment. Then, carefully, he reached out and touched the smooth surface. It was warm. Not hot, but warm like living skin. The blue light pulsed under his hand in a steady rhythm. Something moved inside the egg. Nathan jerked his hand back. His heart hammered in his chest. He stood very still, watching. The light pulsed. The movement came again. Something was alive in there. Something was waiting. He walked around the circle of eggs slowly. A faint shimmer in the air told him there was an energy field protecting them. He found the source at the center of the circle. A crystalline device sat embedded in the stone floor, glowing with the same blue light. But the glow flickered. The light wasn't steady. Nathan knelt beside the device and examined it. He had been an engineer before becoming an administrator. He understood systems. This was a generator powering the protective field. And it was dying. Without the field, these eggs would be exposed to the harsh environment. The temperature would drop. Radiation would penetrate. Whatever was inside would die. Nathan sat back and looked at the 6 glowing eggs. They pulsed peacefully, unaware of danger. Someone had placed them here. Someone had protected them with technology. Then that someone had left. How long ago? 100 years? 1,000? He should report this. He should contact the company and let the scientists handle it. Nathan thought about the last time he followed company rules. 300 people would have died. Instead, he broke the rules and 300 people lived. He lost everything for that choice. But they lived. He stood up and looked at the eggs. They glowed in the darkness like 6 blue stars. "I'll keep you safe," Nathan said quietly to the empty chamber. "Whatever you are, I won't let you die alone." He walked back to his shelter and gathered equipment. Power cells, tools, scanners, emergency supplies. He made 3 trips to the canyon carrying everything he could. The company wouldn't notice. They didn't care what he did as long as he didn't cause trouble. As the sun set on his 15th day of exile, Nathan sat in the ancient chamber beside 6 alien eggs and began working to repair their failing generator. His hands moved with steady purpose. His mind focused on the problem. For the first time since the trial, he felt something other than emptiness and despair. He felt needed. He felt useful. He had found something worth protecting in this forgotten place. The eggs glowed softly in the darkness, and Nathan worked through the night. Nathan worked on the generator for 3 days straight. He barely slept. The crystalline device was like nothing he had ever seen before, but the basic principles were the same as any power system. Energy flowed from a core through regulation channels to output nodes. The problem was that the core was depleting. It had been running for years, maybe centuries, and it was simply running out of power. He couldn't replace the core. The technology was too alien. But he could supplement it. Nathan connected 2 of his portable power cells to the generator using improvised adapters made from salvaged wire and metal plates. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. The flickering blue light stabilized. The energy field around the eggs grew stronger, shimmering more visibly in the air. Nathan sat back and wiped sweat from his forehead. His hands were cut and bruised from working with the sharp crystalline edges. But the eggs were safe now, at least for a while. He established a camp in the chamber. A sleeping bag, some food supplies, water containers, and his tools. He couldn't stay here all the time. He still had to maintain his shelter and keep up appearances in case the company checked on him. But he spent most of his hours in the canyon now, monitoring the eggs and reinforcing the generator connections. On the 23rd day of his exile, everything changed. Nathan was running a diagnostic scan on the energy field when he heard engines overhead. He rushed out of the chamber and looked up. A company survey ship was descending toward the plateau, its scanners sweeping the terrain in visible beams of light. His heart sank. They must have detected the energy signature from the generator. The power cells he had connected were putting out more emissions than the original system. Nathan ran back to his shelter, arriving just as the survey ship landed. 3 people climbed out, all wearing company uniforms. The leader was a woman in her 30s with short black hair and sharp eyes. She carried a data tablet and walked straight toward Nathan. "Nathan Cross," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I'm Survey Chief Angela Rivera. We've detected unusual energy readings coming from this sector. What do you know about them?" Nathan kept his face neutral. "Nothing. I've been here a month. All I do is maintain my shelter and watch the mining drones." Rivera looked at him skeptically. She tapped her tablet. "The energy signature is coming from about 5 kilometers south of here. Have you explored that area?" "No," Nathan lied smoothly. "The mining drones avoid that sector. I figured it was restricted or dangerous. I'm just trying to serve my sentence quietly." Rivera studied him for a long moment. Nathan met her gaze without flinching. He had been interrogated by corporate lawyers during his trial. This was nothing compared to that. Finally, Rivera nodded. "We're going to investigate the source. You stay here. Don't go wandering around." "Understood." "Understood," Nathan said. He watched them board their ship and fly south toward the canyon. His stomach twisted with anxiety. They would find the chamber. They would find the eggs. And they would take them. Corporate policy was clear. Any discovery of value belonged to the company. Living alien specimens would be worth billions. Nathan waited until the ship disappeared over the ridge, then he grabbed his emergency kit and ran south. He had to get there first. He had to protect the eggs somehow. By the time he reached the canyon, the survey ship had already landed near the entrance to the chamber. Nathan slowed to a walk, trying to look casual. Rivera and her team were setting up scanning equipment. They hadn't entered the chamber yet. Rivera saw him approaching and frowned. "I told you to stay at your shelter." "I got curious," Nathan said, breathing hard from the run. "I've been alone for a month. When I saw your ship land, I wanted to see what you found." It was a weak excuse, but Rivera didn't seem to care. She was focused on her tablet. "We're reading massive energy fluctuations inside. And something else. Organic signatures. Multiple life forms." Nathan's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "Life forms? I thought this planet was dead." "So did we," Rivera said. She gestured to her team. "Let's move in." Carefully. Nathan followed them into the chamber. He watched Rivera's face as she saw the eggs for the first time. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened slightly. Then her expression shifted to something calculating and cold. "Incredible," she whispered. She walked around the circle of eggs, her scanner humming. 6 specimens. Definitely alive. The energy field is artificial, protecting them. Someone put these here deliberately. "What are they?" one of her team members asked. "Unknown species," Rivera said. "But look at the size. Look at the bio readings. Whatever hatches from these will be extraordinary." She turned to Nathan suddenly. "You knew about these. That's why you came here." Nathan shook his head. "I just found them the same time you did." Rivera didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she had no proof. She turned back to the eggs. "We need to transport these to a proper research facility. Start prepping the stasis containers." "Wait," Nathan said. The word came out harder than he intended. "You can't move them. The energy field is calibrated to this location. If you disrupt it, you might kill whatever's inside." Rivera looked at him coldly. "Are you an expert on alien biology now, Cross?" "No," Nathan admitted. "But I know enough not to mess with a system I don't understand. These eggs have been here a long time. They're stable. Moving them is a risk." "Everything is a risk," Rivera said. "But these specimens are too valuable to leave on a remote mining planet. The company will want them studied properly." She gestured to her team. "Get the containers ready. We move them tomorrow." Nathan watched helplessly as they set up equipment around the chamber. There was nothing he could do. He had no authority. No power. He was just an exile, a criminal in their eyes. That night, after Rivera's team returned to their ship, Nathan stayed in the chamber. He sat beside the eggs and placed his hand on the nearest one. The surface was warm. The blue light pulsed gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I tried to protect you. I'm still trying. But I don't know how." The egg pulsed brighter for just a moment as if responding to his voice. Nathan blinked. Had he imagined that? He spoke again softly. "Can you hear me?" The pulse came again, synchronized with his words. Not imagination. The egg was responding to him. Nathan moved to the next egg and placed his hand on it. "Hello," he said quietly. The same response. A brightening of the light, a slight increase in warmth. He went around the circle, touching each egg and speaking to it. All 6 responded to his presence. They knew he was there. Somehow they recognized him. Over the following week, Nathan developed a routine. He would visit his shelter during the day to maintain appearances, then return to the canyon at night after Rivera's team finished their work. They were preparing transport containers and running constant scans. Rivera documented everything meticulously. But Nathan noticed something Rivera didn't. The eggs were changing. The movements inside were becoming stronger. The pulses of light were coming faster. And whenever Nathan entered the chamber, all 6 eggs would brighten noticeably. They responded to his footsteps, his voice, his presence. On the 37th day of his exile, Nathan arrived at the chamber to find one of the eggs glowing much brighter than the others. The light was almost white now instead of blue. And the surface was warm enough to feel from a meter away. Something was happening. Nathan knelt beside the egg and watched. The light pulsed rapidly. Inside he could see movement. Something large shifting position. The egg trembled slightly. A crack appeared. It was thin as a hair at first, running from the top of the egg down toward the base. Blue light leaked out through the crack, brighter than before. Nathan held his breath. The crack widened. More light spilled out. Then the storm hit. Keth 7 was normally calm, but the planet occasionally experienced massive dust storms that could last for days. Nathan heard the wind rising outside the chamber, a low howl that grew rapidly louder. Within minutes, the air was thick with flying debris. Visibility dropped to 0. The crack in the egg widened further. Whatever was inside was trying to emerge now during the worst possible conditions. The protective energy field would keep the chamber safe, but Nathan knew the field was still fragile. The storm's electromagnetic interference could disrupt it. He ran outside to his camp and grabbed every tarp and emergency blanket he had brought. The wind nearly knocked him over. Dust stung his eyes and filled his mouth. He dragged the materials back into the chamber and began arranging them around the cracking egg, creating a secondary barrier. The crack split wider. A piece of shell fell away. Nathan saw something inside. Crystalline scales that reflected light in rainbow patterns. A small head pushing through the opening. Eyes that glowed like molten gold. The creature was struggling. The opening wasn't big enough yet. Nathan hesitated for only a moment, then reached forward and carefully pulled away more pieces of shell. The material was tough but brittle. It came away in his hands, revealing more of the creature inside. A dragon. That was the only word Nathan's mind could find. A small dragon with 4 legs, crystalline scales, and wings folded against its body. It was beautiful and alien and completely impossible. The hatchling tumbled out of the egg onto the stone floor. It was about the size of a large dog, wet and shaking. It looked up at Nathan with those golden eyes and made a sound. Not a roar. A small chirp, almost bird-like. Nathan knelt down slowly. The storm howled outside. Dust swirled through the chamber entrance. The hatchling chirped again, clearly frightened. "It's okay," Nathan said softly. "You're safe. I've got you." He wrapped the hatchling in one of the emergency blankets and held it close. The creature was warm, almost hot. It trembled against his chest. Nathan could feel its heart beating rapidly. The other 5 eggs began to glow brighter. Nathan looked at them and realized what was happening. They were all about to hatch. All of them. Right now, in the middle of a violent storm. Nathan held the first hatchling and prepared himself. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no training for this. But he had made a promise to keep these creatures safe, and he wasn't going to break it. The storm raged outside. The eggs cracked one by one. And Nathan became a guardian to 6 impossible creatures on a forgotten world at the edge of human space. The storm lasted 3 days. During that time, all 6 eggs hatched. Nathan barely slept. He worked constantly, helping each creature emerge from its shell, warming them with blankets and keeping them calm. By the time the winds finally died down, he had 6 small dragons chirping and crawling around the chamber floor. They were magnificent. Each one was slightly different. The first to hatch had scales that shimmered blue and silver. The second was smaller, with green and gold coloring. The third was the largest, with deep purple scales that looked almost black in shadows. The fourth had white scales that glowed faintly even without external light. The fifth was bronze-colored with copper highlights. The sixth was the smallest, with scales that shifted through multiple colors depending on the angle of light. Nathan named them in his mind based on the order they hatched. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Simple names, but they helped him keep track. First seemed to be the leader. It was the most confident, the first to explore, the first to approach Nathan without fear. The hatchlings were intelligent. Frighteningly intelligent. Within hours of hatching, they were walking steadily on their 4 legs. Within a day, they recognized Nathan's voice and would turn to look at him when he spoke. Within 2 days, they were following him around the chamber, chirping to get his attention. But the most remarkable discovery came on the 3rd day. Nathan was sitting on the floor, exhausted and worried about food supplies. He had no idea what these creatures ate. His scanner showed they had complex digestive systems, but that didn't tell him what to feed them. First approached him and sat down directly in front of him. The hatchling stared into his eyes. Nathan felt something strange. A warmth in his chest. A sense of curiosity that wasn't his own. He suddenly understood that First was hungry, but more than that, he felt First's specific need. Minerals. Specific types of rock with particular chemical compositions. Nathan blinked in surprise. Did you just tell me what you need? First chirped and tilted its head. The feeling of confirmation washed over Nathan. Yes. They could communicate emotions. Not words but feelings and intentions. When Nathan was calm, the hatchlings were calm. When he felt anxious, they became restless. And they could send feelings back to him. Hunger. Curiosity. Contentment. Trust. Nathan spent the next week learning to care for them. He discovered they needed to eat certain minerals found in the canyon rocks. He used his mining tools to break down the right types of stone and grind them into powder. The hatchlings ate the mineral powder mixed with water, creating a paste they lapped up eagerly. They grew fast. By the end of the first week, they were twice the size they had been when they hatched. Their scales hardened. Their wings began to unfold and stretch. They made different sounds now. Not just chirps, but low rumbles and musical notes that echoed through the chamber. Nathan moved all his supplies into the canyon permanently. He couldn't risk the hatchlings being discovered. Rivera's survey team had left after the storm, but they would be back. The company never gave up on valuable discoveries. He created a routine. Wake up early. Prepare food for the hatchlings. Check the generator and energy field. Spend time with each hatchling individually, building trust. Practice basic commands using emotions and gestures. Monitor the canyon entrance for any signs of company activity. The hatchlings learned quickly. First learned to come when Nathan called. Second learned to stay in one spot when Nathan projected a feeling of stillness. Third, the largest, became protective of Nathan and would position itself between him and the chamber entrance when it sensed his anxiety. But it was fourth that worried Nathan most. The white-scaled hatchling was curious beyond measure. It wandered constantly, exploring every corner of the canyon. Nathan had to keep careful watch to prevent it from leaving the protected area. On the 48th day of his exile, Fourth disappeared. Nathan was preparing food when he realized the white hatchling wasn't in the chamber. He called out, projecting a feeling of concern. The other 5 looked around, but Fourth didn't appear. Nathan's heart began to race. He ran outside and scanned the canyon. No sign of the white scales. He searched for an hour, moving further and further from the chamber. Finally, he found Fourth on a ridge overlooking the main plateau, sitting in plain view of the open sky. The hatchling was staring at the distant mining drones with obvious fascination. Nathan scrambled up the ridge, his lungs burning from the exertion. "You can't be out here," he said urgently, projecting strong feelings of danger. "It's not safe." Fourth looked at him and chirped happily, completely unconcerned. Nathan grabbed the hatchling and carried it back down into the canyon. Fourth was getting heavy. It probably weighed 40 kilograms now. But the damage was done. Nathan didn't know it yet, but a surveillance drone had passed overhead during those few minutes. Its cameras had captured images of something unusual on the ridge. Something that didn't match any known species in the database. 3 days later, Rivera returned. Nathan was in the chamber teaching First to respond to hand signals when he heard engines. Multiple engines. He ran outside and saw not one but 3 company ships landing near the canyon entrance. His stomach dropped. This wasn't a survey team. This was something bigger. Rivera emerged from the lead ship with 12 armed security officers. She wore a different uniform now. Black with red insignia. Corporate security. She walked toward Nathan with a tablet in her hand. "Mr. Cross," she said formally. "We've detected unauthorized life forms in this sector. You're going to tell me exactly what you've been hiding." Nathan kept his face blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." Rivera tapped her tablet. An image appeared on the screen. Fourth, sitting on the ridge, clearly visible. "Our surveillance drone captured this 3 days ago. Unknown species. Juvenile specimen. Matches the biosignatures we detected from the eggs." She looked up at Nathan. "Where are the others?" Nathan said nothing. His mind raced, trying to find a way out of this situation. There was no way out. They had him. Rivera gestured to her security team. "Search the canyon. Find the specimens and prepare them for transport. Use tranquilizers if necessary, but I want them alive and undamaged." The security officers moved past Nathan toward the chamber. He stepped in front of them. "You can't take them. They're not specimens. They're intelligent beings. They're valuable xenobiological assets," Rivera corrected. "And they belong to the company under salvage and discovery laws. Move aside, Cross." Nathan didn't move. "They're living creatures. They have thoughts and feelings. You can't just take them like they're minerals to be mined." Rivera's expression hardened. "You're already serving 5 years for theft of company property. Do you really want to add obstruction to your sentence? I can make your exile permanent." The security officers pushed past Nathan. He tried to follow, but 2 officers grabbed his arms and held him back. He struggled, but they were stronger. He could only watch as the rest of the team entered the chamber. For a moment there was silence. Then Nathan heard it. A deep, resonant sound that made the ground vibrate. Not one voice. 6 voices harmonizing together. The hatchlings were making a sound they had never made before. The security officers came stumbling out of the chamber. Their faces were pale. One of them had dropped his weapon. Rivera ran inside and Nathan heard her gasp. The officers holding Nathan loosened their grip slightly. He pulled free and ran into the chamber. What he saw took his breath away. The 6 hatchlings were arranged in a circle, the same formation as the eggs had been. They were standing perfectly still and their scales were glowing. Bright, intense light radiated from each of them. The harmonic sound they were making grew louder. The stone floor beneath them began to glow with the same blue light as the generator. Ancient symbols carved into the walls lit up one by one. Lines of light traced across the stone, connecting the symbols and patterns Nathan couldn't understand. The entire chamber was awakening, responding to the hatchling's presence. Rivera stood frozen, staring at the display. "What is this?" she whispered. Nathan felt it then. A presence. Not the hatchlings. Something older. Something vast. The crystalline generator at the center of the chamber flared with brilliant light. A hologram materialized above it. The hologram showed a massive creature. An adult version of the hatchlings, but enormous. Easily 20 meters long, with wings that could blot out the sun. The creature's eyes held ancient wisdom. It opened its mouth and Nathan felt words in his mind. Not sounds. Pure meaning transmitted directly into his thoughts. Guardian protocol recognized. Primary bonding confirmed. Protection measures active. Energy barriers shimmered into existence around the chamber entrance. Warning symbols appeared in the air, glowing red. The security officers backed away quickly. Several of them were shouting into their communication devices. Rivera's tablet sparked and died. All the electronic equipment the security team carried began to malfunction. Lights flickered and went out. Weapons powered down. The holographic creature looked directly at Nathan. "The children have chosen their guardian. The ancient compact is honored. Defense systems engaged." Nathan stood in the center of 6 glowing hatchlings as the ancient technology of a forgotten species came to life around him. The chamber thrummed with power. The hatchlings continued their harmonic song. Rivera and her security team retreated to the entrance, blocked by the energy barriers. She stared at Nathan across the glowing chamber. "What have you done?" she demanded. Nathan looked down at First, who sat calmly at his feet despite the chaos. The hatchling looked up at him with trust in its golden eyes. Nathan felt the emotions flowing from all 6 of them. Not fear. Not concern. Just absolute certainty that he would protect them. "I kept them safe," Nathan said quietly. "That's all I did." The hologram flickered but remained visible. Signal transmitted. Fleet awakening. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Rivera's face went white. Fleet? What fleet? But Nathan was already beginning to understand. These hatchlings weren't abandoned. They weren't lost. They had been placed here deliberately, protected by technology designed to last millennia. And that technology had just sent a message across the stars. Someone was coming. And everything was about to change. The hologram faded slowly, leaving the chamber in a strange half-light. The energy barriers at the entrance remained active, shimmering like heat waves in the air. Rivera and her security team stood on the other side, unable to enter. The electronic equipment they carried was still dead, useless pieces of metal and plastic. Nathan sat down on the stone floor, his legs suddenly weak. The 6 hatchlings gathered around him, pressing their warm bodies against his sides. They had stopped their harmonic singing, but their scales still glowed faintly. First rested its head on Nathan's lap. The gesture was so trusting, so peaceful, that Nathan felt tears stinging his eyes. 72 hours, Rivera said from beyond the barrier. Her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Whatever signal this place sent, we have 3 days before something arrives. You need to deactivate these defenses and let us secure the area. Nathan looked up at her. Secure the area? You mean capture the hatchlings and take them away? They're alien life forms of unknown origin, Rivera said. The company has protocols for this situation. These creatures need to be studied, contained, and properly managed. They're children, Nathan said. The word felt right. That's what they were. Children who had just been born, who needed care and protection. You saw the hologram. They're Vrent, an ancient species. And they chose me as their guardian. Rivera laughed, but there was no humor in it. A hologram chose you? Cross, you're delusional. That was probably just an automated security system. You triggered it by interfering with the eggs. Nathan shook his head. I didn't interfere. I protected them. The generator was failing. They would have died if I hadn't repaired it. That doesn't give you ownership, Rivera snapped. You're a convicted criminal serving an exile sentence. You have no legal rights here. These creatures are company property under Discovery laws. They're not property, Nathan said firmly. He stood up, carefully moving the hatchlings aside. They chirped in protest but stayed where they were. Nathan walked to the edge of the energy barrier and looked Rivera in the eyes. They're intelligent. They communicate. They feel emotions. They learn and grow and think. Would you call a human child property? They're not human, Rivera said. No, they're better, Nathan replied. They don't lie. They don't cheat. They don't put profits above lives. Rivera's face darkened. Watch yourself, Cross. I can add insubordination to your charges. Add whatever you want, Nathan said. I'm not letting you take them. For a long moment they stared at each other across the barrier. Then Rivera stepped back and spoke into her wrist communicator. Bring up the heavy equipment. We're going to need to disable these barriers. Over the next hour, Nathan watched as Rivera's team brought specialized tools from their ships. Energy dampeners. Electromagnetic pulse generators. Cutting lasers. They set up equipment around the chamber entrance and began working to break through the barrier. The hatchlings sensed Nathan's anxiety. They became restless, moving around the chamber and making low, worried sounds. Nathan tried to project calm, but his own fear was too strong. What would happen when the barriers failed? Would Rivera's team use force? Would they hurt the hatchlings? Third, the largest hatchling approached the barrier and growled. It was the first aggressive sound Nathan had heard from any of them. The deep purple scales along Third's back stood up like spikes. The hatchling was preparing to defend its territory. No, Nathan said quickly, projecting feelings of peace. Don't fight them. That's what they want. An excuse to use weapons. Third looked at him uncertainly, then slowly relaxed. But the hatchling stayed near the barrier, watching Rivera's team with obvious distrust. The cutting lasers began to work. The energy barrier flickered where the beams hit it. Slowly, inch by inch, the barrier was weakening. Nathan estimated they had maybe 2 hours before it failed completely. He sat back down with the hatchlings and tried to think. There had to be a way out of this. The hologram had said a fleet was coming. 72 hours. If he could just hold out for 3 days, help might arrive. But how could he stop Rivera for that long? Fourth, the curious white-scaled hatchling made a strange sound. Not a chirp or a rumble. Something different. Almost like words, but in a language Nathan didn't know. The other hatchlings turned to look at Fourth. Then one by one they began to make similar sounds. Nathan felt something shift in the air. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. The stone floor beneath them vibrated gently. The holographic projector at the center of the chamber activated again. This time the hologram was different. It didn't show a single Vrenth. It showed hundreds of them flying through space between stars. It showed planets where they landed, helping primitive species develop technology and culture. It showed them building cities of light and crystal. It showed them as teachers, healers, and peacekeepers across thousands of worlds. Then the vision shifted. It showed war. Not the Vrenth fighting but other species destroying each other. The Vrenth tried to stop the violence but they failed. The war spread. Entire civilizations collapsed. The galaxy burned. The Vrenth made a choice. Rather than watch the destruction continue, they would sleep. They would hide their eggs in protected places across the galaxy and wait. Wait for the younger species to mature. Wait for a time when peace was possible again. But they built in a test. Only a guardian who would protect the eggs without thought of reward could activate the awakening signal. Someone who would give everything for creatures they didn't understand, who would stand against their own kind to keep the vulnerable safe. Nathan understood now. This wasn't an accident. The failing generator, the isolation of Keth, 7, even his exile to this specific place. It was all part of the test. The Vrenth had been waiting for someone like him. Someone who valued life above everything else. The hologram shifted again. It showed Nathan himself working to repair the generator. Helping the hatchlings emerge from their eggs. Feeding them. Teaching them. Standing against Rivera's team. Every action had been recorded, evaluated, judged. Then the hologram showed the final image. A title, written in symbols that Nathan somehow understood. First Guardian. Nathan Cross. Species, human. Status, recognized. The vision faded. The symbols on the walls pulsed once with brilliant light, then settled into a steady glow. And Nathan felt something change inside himself. A connection to the hatchlings that was stronger than before. He could sense them more clearly now. Not just emotions but thoughts. Impressions. Memories. First looked at him with those golden eyes and Nathan heard a single word in his mind. Not spoken. Just there. Father. His breath caught. Father. That's how they saw him. Not as a keeper or a guardian. As family. Rivera's voice cut through the moment. Almost through. Prepare tranquilizer rounds. Nathan stood up quickly. The barrier was failing faster now. Large sections had dissolved under the cutting lasers. Rivera's security team was loading weapons with dark cartridges. They were going to shoot the hatchlings the moment the barrier fell. No, Nathan said. He walked to the barrier and stood directly in the opening gap. You'll have to go through me first. Rivera stared at him. Move aside, Cross. Don't be stupid. I'm not moving, Nathan said. His voice was steady despite his fear. These are sentient beings. Attacking them is the same as attacking children. I won't let you do it. Then you'll be tranquilized too, Rivera said coldly. She gestured to her team. On my mark. The hatchlings felt Nathan's determination. They felt his willingness to sacrifice himself for them. And they reacted. All 6 began to sing again. But this time the harmonic sound was different. Deeper. More powerful. The entire canyon started to vibrate. Cracks appeared in the rock walls, glowing with blue light. Ancient machinery buried in the stone came to life. The ground beneath Rivera's team suddenly shifted. Pillars of crystal rose from the earth, forming a cage around the security officers. They shouted in surprise and tried to back away, but more pillars appeared behind them. Within seconds they were completely enclosed. Energy weapons emerged from hidden compartments in the canyon walls. They tracked and targeted every member of Rivera's team simultaneously. Red targeting lasers painted dots on their foreheads. Rivera went very still. What is this? The holographic Vrenth appeared again. This time its voice was stern, almost angry. Hostile intent detected. Guardian protection protocol activated. All threats will be neutralized. Nathan felt the weapons charging. They were going to fire. They were going to kill Rivera and her entire team. Wait. Nathan shouted. He projected feelings of mercy as strongly as he could toward the hatchlings. Don't kill them. Please. They're afraid and confused but they don't deserve to die. The hatchlings stopped singing. The weapons powered down slightly but remained aimed at Rivera's team. They tried to take us, First voice said in Nathan's mind. They threatened you. I know, Nathan thought back. But killing them makes us no better than they are. Show them mercy. Show them what the Vrenth really stand for. There was a long pause. Nathan could feel the hatchlings considering his words. Then, slowly, the energy weapons retracted back into the walls. The crystal pillars sank back into the ground. Rivera and her team were free. But the message was clear. The Vrenth technology was active now. And it would protect Nathan and the hatchlings from any threat. Rivera stood frozen, her face pale. She looked at Nathan with something like fear. "What are you?" "I'm just someone who cares," Nathan said quietly. "That's all I ever was." Rivera and her security team retreated to their ships. They didn't leave the planet, but they kept their distance from the canyon. Nathan could see them setting up observation equipment on the plateau, monitoring the situation from what they considered a safe range. Every few hours, Rivera would send a communication requesting to speak with Nathan. He ignored them all. The hatchlings were growing rapidly now. In just the 2 days since the defense systems activated, they had doubled in size again. First was nearly as tall as Nathan's waist. Third was even larger, its purple scales gleaming like polished metal. Their wings were fully extended now, and they practiced flying in short bursts around the chamber. Nathan spent his time teaching them and learning from them. The mental connection between them grew stronger each day. He could sense their individual personalities more clearly now. First was brave and protective. Second was thoughtful and careful. Third was strong and direct. Fourth was endlessly curious. Fifth was gentle and empathetic. Sixth was playful and quick. They were children, but they were also something more. Ancient knowledge seemed to stir in them sometimes. They would look at the symbols on the walls and understand meanings Nathan couldn't grasp. They would touch the crystal technology and know instinctively how to activate it. On the morning of the third day, the sky changed. Nathan was outside the chamber, gathering mineral rocks for the hatchlings' breakfast, when he felt them all react at once. A surge of excitement and recognition flooded through the mental connection. He looked up and saw 3 points of light descending through the atmosphere. The lights grew larger quickly. Within minutes, Nathan could make out shapes. Ships. Massive ships that dwarfed Rivera's vessels like mountains dwarfing pebbles. They were beautiful, constructed from the same crystalline material as the ancient structures in the canyon. Light flowed through them in patterns that seemed alive. The ships settled into positions above the plateau. They didn't land. They simply hung in the air, silent and majestic. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. The Vrenth had arrived. Rivera's voice crackled over a loudspeaker from her camp. "Unknown vessels, this is Corporate Security Chief Angela Rivera. You are entering company-controlled space. Identify yourselves immediately." There was no response to her demand. Instead, beams of light descended from the 3 ships. Not weapons. Transport beams. Figures materialized in the light, appearing from nothing as the beams deposited them gently on the ground. Nathan's breath caught. They were Vrenth. Adult Vrenth. Enormous creatures, each one at least 15 meters long from nose to tail. Their scales were like living gemstones, reflecting light in impossible colors. Their wings were folded against their backs, but even folded they were massive. Their eyes held intelligence that made Nathan feel very small and very young. 5 Vrenth materialized near the canyon entrance. The largest one, with scales of deep gold and silver, moved forward with fluid grace. Its presence was overwhelming. Nathan felt power radiating from it like heat from a sun. The hatchlings rushed out of the chamber, chirping and singing with joy. They ran to the adult Vrenth, pressing against their legs and wings. The adults lowered their great heads and touched the hatchlings gently with their snouts. The reunion was filled with emotion so powerful that Nathan felt tears on his face. Then the golden Vrenth turned its gaze to Nathan. He froze. Those eyes saw everything. They looked into him, through him, beyond him. Nathan felt his entire life laid bare in that moment. Every choice, every regret, every hope. The Vrenth spoke. Not with sound, but directly into Nathan's mind. The voice was ancient and vast, like the echo of stars. "I am Ketharn, elder of the Vrenth. You are the one who protected our children." Nathan nodded, unable to speak. His voice felt too small for this moment. "Come," Ketharn said. "Let me see what you have done." The elder approached Nathan until they stood face to face. Well, face to chest. Nathan had to tilt his head back to look into those golden eyes. Ketharn lowered his massive head until his snout almost touched Nathan's forehead. "Open your mind to me," the elder said. "Let me know you truly." Nathan didn't know how to do that, but he tried to relax. To let his thoughts flow freely without resistance. He felt Ketharn's consciousness touch his own. It was gentle despite the overwhelming power behind it. The elder saw Nathan's memories. The trial. The false accusations. The faces of the 300 people he had saved, people who weren't allowed to speak for him. The transport ship leaving him alone on Keth, 7. The crushing loneliness of exile. Then the discovery of the eggs. The failing generator. The decision to help despite having no reason to care. The long nights of repair work. The moment of first hatching. The joy of watching the hatchlings grow. The fear when Rivera arrived. The willingness to stand between them and danger. Ketharn withdrew from Nathan's mind gently. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then Nathan felt something he didn't expect. Sadness. Deep, profound sadness. Your own kind cast you out for saving lives, Ketharn said. They punished you for showing compassion. They called you criminal for choosing morality over profit. Yes, Nathan said quietly. And yet, when you found our children abandoned and dying, you chose to save them too. Even though you had nothing to gain. Even though you had already lost everything. Nathan looked at the hatchlings. First was watching him intently. They needed help, he said simply. What else could I do? Ketharn made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. It took Nathan a moment to realize the elder was laughing. What else could you do? Most beings would do nothing. They would walk away. They would think only of themselves. The elder's eyes seemed to glow brighter. But you are not most beings. The other adult Vrenth had gathered around, listening. The hatchlings pressed close to Nathan, forming a protective circle around him. They were still small compared to the adults, but their intention was clear. He was theirs and they would defend him. Ketharn noticed the gesture. The children have bonded with you. Completely. Absolutely. In 50,000 years of Vrenth history, such a bond has formed between our kind and another species only 7 times. You are the 8th. Nathan felt the weight of those words. 50,000 years. 7 times. He was standing in a moment of history so rare it happened across millennia. The bond cannot be broken, Ketharn continued. These 6 children are yours now as much as they are ours. Your family. You are Vrenth in spirit if not in form. One of the other adult Vrenth stepped forward. This one had scales of deep blue and white. We have reviewed the memories the children shared. We have seen how you cared for them. Fed them. Taught them. Protected them against your own kind. The blue Vrentha's voice was warm. You honored our children. Therefore, you shall be honored among our people. Ketharn raised his great head and spoke loudly enough for everyone on the plateau to hear, including Rivera's team. Nathan Cross, human of Earth. You are declared first guardian of this generation. A title given to those who protect Vrenth children at cost to themselves. A title of honor not bestowed in 50,000 years. The other Vrenth began to hum. It was the same harmonic sound the hatchlings made, but deeper and more complex. The canyon walls resonated with the sound. The very air seemed to vibrate with it. Nathan felt something settle over him. Not physical but real nonetheless. A mantle of responsibility and honor. The hatchlings sang with their elders, and Nathan understood that this was a ceremony. Ancient and sacred. When the humming stopped, Ketharn lowered his head again to look at Nathan directly. We offer you a choice, first guardian. You may return to human space with our testimony. We will speak on your behalf. The charges against you will be cleared. Your name will be restored. You will have your life back. Nathan's heart leapt. His name cleared. His reputation restored. He could go home. See familiar faces. Live without the weight of false accusations. Or, Ketharn continued, you may come with us. The children need you still. They are young. They require guidance, teaching, and love. You could help raise them properly. Travel with us among the stars. See worlds beyond human imagination. Become truly part of our people. The choice hung in the air between them. Nathan looked at the 6 hatchlings. They watched him with those intelligent golden eyes. He felt their emotions through the bond. Hope, fear, love. First stepped forward and pressed against Nathan's leg. Stay, the hatchling's voice said in his mind. Please stay. Nathan closed his eyes. His old life called to him. The chance to clear his name to prove he had been right all along. But that life had rejected him. His own people had thrown him away for doing the right thing. These children had accepted him completely. No judgment. No conditions. Just pure trust and love. He opened his eyes and looked at Ketharn. I'll stay. For as long as they need me. The elder's eyes seemed to shine with approval. Then you shall travel with us, first guardian. Your name will still be cleared. The Vrenth do not forget debts of honor. But you will do so as one of our people, not as a supplicant begging for justice. Ketharn turned and looked across the plateau to where Rivera stood with her security team. The elder's voice boomed across the distance. Humans of the corporation. Hear our words. Nathan Cross is under Vrenth protection. The charges against him are false. We have seen his memories. He saved lives at personal cost. Those who punished him will face our judgment. Rivera's voice came back over the loudspeaker, uncertain now. We have no authority to change legal decisions. Then find those who do, Ketharn said. Tell them the Vrenth have returned. Tell them we remember the old ways when honor meant more than profit. Tell them we are watching. The elder turned back to Nathan. Come. Let us leave this place. Your true family awaits. The transport beam lifted Nathan and the 6 hatchlings into the largest of the 3 Vrenth ships. The sensation was strange, like floating in warm water. The world below grew smaller as they rose. Nathan could see Rivera and her security team staring up at them, tiny figures on the barren plateau. Then they passed through the hull of the ship and everything changed. Nathan had expected a cargo bay or a simple landing platform. Instead, he found himself standing in a garden. A real garden, with grass beneath his feet and trees reaching toward a sky that somehow existed inside the ship. Water flowed in small streams. Birds sang in the branches. The air smelled like flowers and rain. How is this possible? Nathan whispered. Ketharn materialized beside him, having transported up from the surface. We do not travel in metal boxes like your people. Our ships are living spaces. We carry our homes with us among the stars. The hatchlings immediately scattered to explore, chirping with excitement. They splashed in the streams and chased the small flying creatures that darted between the trees. Nathan watched them play and felt something warm expand in his chest. Joy. Pure, simple joy. Over the next hours, the Vrenth showed Nathan his new home. The ship was vast beyond comprehension. Gardens and forests filled entire sections. There were chambers of crystal that hummed with soft light. Libraries containing knowledge from thousands of worlds. Living quarters designed for different species, including a section modified for human comfort. Nathan was given a room that overlooked one of the gardens. It had a bed, a chair, and a window that showed the stars outside. Simple but infinitely more welcoming than his exile shelter had been. An adult Vrenth named Charlene, the blue and white scaled one who had spoken during the ceremony, visited Nathan that evening. I will help you learn our ways, she said. Her mental voice was gentle. You are first guardian. You must understand what that means. I'm not sure I do understand, Nathan admitted. Why is this title so important? Charlene settled onto the floor, folding her massive wings. The Vrenth do not breed often. Our children are precious beyond measure. When we placed the eggs in stasis 50,000 years ago, we built tests into the system. Only those who truly value life above all else could trigger the awakening. But I just did what felt right, Nathan said. Exactly, Charlene replied. You did not help the children for reward or recognition. You helped because they needed help. That is the rarest quality in the galaxy. Most species think first of benefit to themselves. You thought first of vulnerable life. She paused, her golden eyes studying him. 7 times in our long history, other species have passed the test. Each guardian became legendary. They helped shape their civilizations toward compassion and wisdom. You're the 8th. The first human to ever earn this honor. The weight of that responsibility settled on Nathan's shoulders. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail them? You have already proven yourself, Charlene said. The children love you. They trust you. That bond will guide you. Trust it in return. The days that followed fell into a peaceful rhythm. Nathan woke each morning in his room and went to the garden where the hatchlings slept in a nest they had built from soft grasses. They would greet him with chirps and songs, then demand breakfast. Nathan learned to prepare their food properly, mixing minerals in the exact proportions they needed. Charlene taught him about Vrenth history and culture. He learned that they had once been peacekeepers for hundreds of worlds. They had helped younger species avoid the mistakes that led to war and extinction. But eventually the conflicts grew too large. Species that the Vrenth had helped turned on each other in wars so destructive that entire star systems burned. The Vrenth had chosen to sleep rather than watch the destruction. They hoped that in time the younger species would mature, would learn, would become ready for true peace. And now you have returned, Nathan said. Does that mean the galaxy is ready? Ketharn, who was listening to the lesson, shook his great head. No, the galaxy is not ready. But the children have awakened, so we must return. Perhaps it is time to try again. Perhaps your species will show us new hope. While Nathan learned and the hatchlings grew, the Vrenth did not forget their promise. Ketharn sent messages to human governments and media organizations. The messages contained proof of Nathan's innocence. Recordings from the Vrenth technology showed everything. The viral outbreak on Station Vega, 9. The company refusing medical aid. Nathan distributing the medicine. The 300 lives saved. But the messages also contained more. The Vrenth had accessed corporate databases using technology that human systems could not block. They found evidence of corruption. Executives who had deliberately withheld the medicine to increase profits from later sales. Evidence that Nathan had been framed as a scapegoat to cover the company's negligence. The scandal exploded across human space. News networks broadcast the evidence continuously. Public outrage grew. The executives who had ordered Nathan's exile were arrested. The company's stock value collapsed. Investigations began into dozens of other incidents where profits had been valued over lives. Nathan watched the news broadcast from his room on the Vrenth ship. He saw his own face on the screens, younger and full of hope in the old photos they showed. He saw the 300 people he had saved giving interviews, telling anyone who would listen that Nathan Cross was a hero, not a criminal. His name was cleared. More than cleared. He was famous now. Celebrated. Humanity's first contact with the Vrenth had come through him. People called him ambassador, pioneer, legend. But Nathan felt strangely distant from it all. That life seemed like it belonged to someone else. A different person from a different time. "Does it bother you?" First asked one evening. The hatchling was much larger now, almost the size of an adult human. Its blue and silver scales gleamed in the garden light. "Does what bother me?" Nathan asked. "The humans celebrating you now. After they cast you away." Nathan considered the question. "A little," he admitted. "But mostly I just feel free. They can celebrate or condemn. It doesn't matter anymore. I have something better now." First rested its head on Nathan's lap. "You have us." "Yes," Nathan said, stroking the crystalline scales. "I have you." The Vrenth did establish contact with humanity, but it was carefully controlled. Ketharn met with representatives from Earth's Ethical Council, a group dedicated to promoting moral governance. The Vrenth shared some knowledge, some technology, some wisdom. But they refused to deal with corporations or military organizations. "We will not give weapons to those who value profit over life," Ketharn announced publicly. "We will not share knowledge with those who would exploit it. Humanity must prove itself worthy of our friendship." It was a challenge and a promise. "Work toward justice and compassion," the Vrenth said, "and we will help you reach the stars properly. Continue to prioritize greed and power, and you will face the same destructive fate as countless other species." Nathan watched these negotiations with interest, but he was not directly involved. His role was different. He was guardian to 6 growing Vrenth children who needed him. The hatchlings learned fast. Within 6 months they could fly properly, soaring through the vast spaces inside the ship. They could communicate in complex thoughts and concepts. They began to access the ancient knowledge encoded in their genetics, remembering things their species had known for millennia. But they were still children. They played games and got into mischief. Fourth, the curious white-scaled one, constantly explored restricted areas of the ship. Third, the large purple one started friendly wrestling matches that sometimes got too rough. Sixth, the color-shifting smallest one, loved to hide and make Nathan search for it. Nathan disciplined them when needed, taught them when they asked, and loved them always. He was father, teacher, and friend all at once. One evening, nearly a year after leaving Keth, 7, Nathan stood in the garden watching the hatchlings sleep. They were curled together in their nest, breathing slowly and peacefully. They were beautiful. Perfect. His family. Charlene approached quietly and stood beside him. "You smile more now," she observed. Nathan realized it was true. He smiled all the time these days. "I was alone for so long," he said. "On Keth, 7 in my exile even before that. I always felt like I didn't quite fit anywhere. And now I fit exactly where I am." Charlene hummed softly, a sound of contentment. "The galaxy works in strange ways. You were banished by your people. Sent to die slowly on a forgotten world. But that banishment led you here. To purpose. To family. To a destiny larger than you imagined." Nathan nodded. "I used to be angry about the trial. About the lies and the injustice. But if none of that had happened, I never would have found the eggs. I never would have met them." He gestured at the sleeping hatchlings. "So maybe it wasn't punishment at all. Maybe it was a path to something better." "Spoken like a true guardian," Charlene said. News of Nathan Cross spread beyond human space. Other species heard the story of the human who had passed the ancient test. Who had been banished and forgotten by his own kind, yet chosen by the Vrenth. It became a legend told across hundreds of worlds. Some species sent representatives asking to meet the first guardian. Others sent gifts. A few sent challenges, testing whether Nathan truly deserved the honor. Ketharn refused them all. When the children are grown, the elder said, then Nathan may choose to meet with others. For now his duty is to them. Nothing else matters. Nathan was grateful for the protection. He had no desire for fame or political intrigue. He just wanted to watch his children grow. On the anniversary of his arrival on the Vrenth ship, Nathan sat in the garden under strange stars. First lay beside him, now almost as large as Charlene. The hatchling's head rested in Nathan's lap as it had a year ago, though it was much heavier now. Are you happy? First asked quietly. Yes, Nathan said without hesitation. Happier than I ever thought possible. Good, First rumbled. Because we love you. You are the only father we have ever known. The other 5 hatchlings had gathered around, listening. They hummed their agreement, creating that beautiful harmonic sound that made the very air vibrate with joy. Nathan looked at each of them. First, brave and strong. Second, wise and thoughtful. Third, powerful and direct. Fourth, endlessly curious. Fifth, gentle and kind. Sixth, playful and clever. His children. His family. His purpose. He had been banished by humanity as a criminal. Cast away and forgotten. But among the stars, with 6 dragon children sleeping peacefully around him, Nathan Cross had become something far greater. He had become a legend. A guardian. A father. And he had finally come home.